All right, Taylor, Lyle, so glad to have you guys here. I've been thinking about this for a long time and wanting to interview you guys about this. Lyle, I think we met almost 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago in Vegas. And from the beginning, you worked with us and you said, "Hey, I'm working on this plan and I am building this for the next generation." So I'll let you, without putting any words in your mouth, Lyle, I'll let you start and kind of walk through what the plan is for succession and what you've been doing and what your vision is to pass this along.
I absolutely, and thank you, Jeremy. And I'm honored that you've asked Taylor and I to participate in this. This is going to be fun. So we'll just kind of talk like we regularly talk about a pretty significant part of our life right now, and it's building this succession plan. And when I say building it, it's building. This has been a monster project, and it's going to continue as we continue to build our company. I believe I'm very fortunate. I think, yes, all entrepreneurs build a company with an end in mind. And I did that originally. And the end in mind was not for my daughter to take over the company someday, but the end was to sell it. If you're going to build it to sell it. And so I've always felt that way. But circumstances changed a long time. And first, I'll tell you a little bit about how it started. Paul and I love being in the property management business and love traveling and going places with NARPM. And so we used to take my daughter with us, and Taylor spent lots of time at swimming pools and then going out with us after. I could tell you stories about Orlando, Florida, and all the fun we had at Disney World. But anyway, so she at a very early age, in fact, probably about 8 years old, she started getting exposed to our business and to NARPM. And I will never forget that she would come home from school and it'd be 3 o'clock or so, and she'd come in and she'd say, "Okay, hey, I'm ready to play. Come on, let's go do something." And I'd say, "Nope, we're not finished yet." I said, go to your room and get after your homework. And "I hate your company." She'd stomp off. "I hate this business. I hate it." She'd go off and she'd start doing her work. And so we'd finish up and then we'd spend time with her. But from an early age, she got exposed to the time and commitment and the stress and the strategy and all these elements at a very early age of what it took to build a company. And so more and more, she would spend time with us traveling, and she grew up in the company as we started. Paul and I started with 0 properties. In fact, being an entrepreneur, there were several different industries I was looking at, and I'd been in real estate for a long time. And I thought, I'm going to take a look at the real estate industry again. And I'd been in lending, and I had a retail company with retail sign stores in different states. And I've been in real estate, and I worked for Procter & Gamble. And so I've been exposed to a lot of things. And I thought, let's get back into real estate. So I looked at different elements of the real estate industry for an opportunity. And as I looked at each one of them, the commercial, residential, the various aspects of it, it looked like the property management industry was one that was ripe for some innovation. It was ripe for competition. It was really run by this was 17 years ago, small companies typically. And I felt there was a real opportunity there to build a business. So when we started the company, we started it as a business. We were building a business, not a mom and pop company, but we were building a business that was going to continue to be built and build beyond us, even when we decided to get out of it. So anyway, that's why we got into the business. But let's get back to Taylor and her process. So I remember one time we were in the swimming pool at one of the conventions, and Taylor was looking around, and I think it was her first exposure as to how big this business really was. There were hundreds and hundreds of people in this pool. It might have been in Florida. It was someplace fun, as I recall, Taylor. But anyway, there was a lot of people there, and she looked around and she finally started grasping, this isn't this little tiny thing that my mom and dad started. This is a piece of a very big, huge pie. And there are a lot of really cool people involved in this. I think that might have been, and she can tell you herself when she kind of recognized that and the opportunity. So off to school, Taylor goes. And the one thing I learned about Taylor was that she needs to make a lot of these decisions on her own. And so she started college, and she decided to go into the arts and science college. And she started off, and I said, "Taylor," I said, "you can go to college and we'll back you and we'll support you. and you can help with that. But I said, you go to college to get a job when you get out. So she went to college, and I think she was there at least a couple of years. And she said, why didn't you make me go into business? And I said, Taylor, I can't make you do anything. And so that's when she changed to business. But make a long story short, she decided, I think that at that point that she was interested in what she'd been exposed to all her life. And she, I think eventually, as she started working for our company, I think you've been with our company how many years now, Taylor? 8 years or something? 7 years, 7 or 8 years. She decided, and I'll let her tell you the story about her wanting to get in the business, but there's a lot of aspects to this I want to make sure I cover with you, because I think it's important for other family combinations to understand that the grooming process takes years. Taylor's first exposure to a high level was when I would take her to all of Jordan's presentations. She went with me everywhere. And then she went to broker owner. So I started exposing Taylor to more high level thinking at a very early age. And that, I think, is part of why she is so developed as a manager at this point. And I'm giving you stuff to ask me questions, Jeremy. But I think the key for a relationship like this to work is, first of all, Taylor can tell you about the difference of when she first started talking to people about going into business with the family versus other opportunities. She'll touch on that a little bit, and why she feels she is good for this part. But it started with a grooming process, and then once a decision is made, knowing where my role in the company is how to develop a team to support Taylor. And I think that's key, because I can't walk away unless I feel that Taylor, who will be running the company without a question, has the proper support and managers at her access as we continue to develop. And we're growing pretty significantly. We can share that with you too.
I appreciate you crystallizing that last part there. That was great. That was total gem. So just to elaborate on that just briefly, Lyle, when you say you wanted to make sure Taylor was supported, did you mean the right staff, the outside consultants? What do you mean by that exactly?
It's a combination of both, but primarily internally with a management team. I know what I bring as an entrepreneur and the leader of the company and the person who started the company. And I know how Paula, who has shared the vision and shared this process since day one, who's an equal partner in the company. But I know what our roles have been. And for the company to grow significantly, and we're over 1,100 units right now, and continuing to grow, as you know our path and our growth through the years through rent scale. But we continue to build the company, but you can add more people to the company, but you have to add more managers that can contribute to that growth and have the same vision and that will support Taylor. Eventually our role, Jamie, Paula and I will be directors in the company for a long time, very long time. But Taylor will absolutely be running the company herself someday with our influence and contribution and support as we continue to step further and further back.
Great. So we'll come back to transition, because I think that's what everyone wants to know. And some of that you've done, some of that you're about to do. So that's fantastic. So to see how the sausage is made, I give writer's notes so the writer knows. So 17 years you guys have been in business. Is that correct?
Yep. Our 17th year. Yes.
17th year. And Paula is your wife, and you guys founded the company together.
Yep.
I know I take all these things for granted, but I have to say these things so the writer actually gets it right. And you're over 1,100 units, and it's all over Colorado, correct? Is it statewide or just the northern side? How would you explain the market?
Why don't you explain, Taylor? Go ahead.
Yeah, we do what we consider like the Colorado Front Range. So kind of like the I-25 corridor. So we're in northern Colorado, in Fort Collins, the Denver metro, and then in the Colorado Springs market. So basically north to south of the state.
Right. That's well said.
So we just launched Steamboat 2 months ago. We're developing a new concept for the mountain communities. And if Steamboat works out well, and we anticipate that it will, we're going to expand into other mountain regions. We'll go into Summit County, and then we'll go into the Vail Beaver Creek area as well.
Love it. Hope to be a client soon. I'm heavily looking in the Fort Collins area for rental properties. So you guys will be my first call once I do that. Jen, as you know, is her license out there. She's helping me try to find some places, but I just think that's a fantastic area. So, and an area that I think is going to grow. So, all right, Taylor, on the flip side, well, let's hear from your side. When did you think this was just this giant distraction that your parents couldn't play with you to when you started getting interested? I'd love to hear kind of the coming of age. And by the way, just for numbers' sake, are you comfortable with me sharing how old you are? I know we talked, you got the birthday sign in the back. I think this is actually really pertinent issues, like, because we can talk about timeline. So you're 27 now. And so 17 years ago, I mean, you know, we know that you've been around since you probably can remember. You probably don't remember the days that Paula and Lyle were not running a business, right? So walk us through how you experienced it coming in.
Yeah, so when I was a kid and my parents started the business, it was all hands on deck. My parents worked from home. They worked 100% 40 plus hours a week. So it was very ingrained that, you know, work was very important, and for all the reasons why. And I spent many an evening and weekend going to do showings and move out walkthroughs and move ins. And then of course on holidays and after hours, you know, emergency calls and things like that. So from a child's perspective, yes, didn't like it at all, hated it, never ever thought I would ever work in the industry. Then I went to college, and like Lyle said, I originally started in arts and sciences, and I didn't officially make that change to be in the business school until Lyle invited me to go to the first ever PM Grow Summit. And so I went, and I met, at the time they only allowed like 250 attendees. So I met a bunch of very
Was
important.
it the West Palm one? No, was there
The first one
it's
was.
a small detail. I think the first one was West Palm, because I didn't know Jordan yet, and he was right in my neighborhood, which was like, it was like
Okay.
to be that we were gonna end up meeting each other.
Might have been. Yeah.
I
It
think
might have
West
been,
Palm
yeah.
was the very first one. So anyway, so I digress. Go for it.
Very good. But yes, at the time I met a bunch of, you know, high rollers, very smart people, very successful businesses. And I was like, wow, until that moment, never knew that anybody else was a property manager or wanted to be one, which I know sounds silly, but as a kid, it always.
Trust me, you're not the only person in the world that thinks that, Taylor. So
Yes, exactly. And as a kid, you know, you always think it's your parents' job, you know, mom and pop style, not like the potential that it has. So I went to that, and then either that same year or the following year, I went to Maui, Hawaii with them, and I went for the vacation. I hung out at the pool the whole time, and one day when I was at the pool, there was a bunch of people out there, and Bart was actually the president at the time. He's ordering everybody drinks, everybody's calling, you know, Bart, give me a drink and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, you actually made a lot of money doing this. So it was kind of those two pivotal moments that made me feel like this was something I wanted to do. So at that point, I then got into the business school and started going through kind of the management options in the business school, and really kind of went that way. And like Lyle mentioned, it was a lot of, yes, resources as far as forming the right staff. We got the right technology, which was something that I think I contribute to a lot, because, you know, when you do something for so long a certain way, and no offense, my parents are older, you know, technology can be intimidating, or you can't quite see the potential. So when I came in, I'm like, we're doing everything wrong, which I'm sure they loved. But we got a lot of technology on board. We got a lot of systems. We got outside help from coaches, just like yourself with Rent Scale. So it really kind of helped it be exciting and transitional in that aspect.
Oh, that's great. So, total off the cuff question: if somebody's reading this and they've got a kid who they're thinking could be the next, you know, the next generation of leadership, would you recommend business school? Did you get anything out of business school that has helped you, or was that even necessary?
I would say if you really want your kids to get involved, I think the first thing you have to do is take them to conferences, because I went to the business school with the goal of I was going to run a business one day, because at that point I decided I was going to give my parents the boot. So it wasn't that it like motivated me to be in the industry. What really did was seeing the potential, seeing other successful people, and just like opening your eyes to what it could be. So yeah, if I had any advice, it would be you can't force your kid to do it. It has to be self-discovery, but you have to like get them involved in ways that makes them excited, not like move out walkthroughs, because that's not a good thing.
So yeah, less walkthroughs and more of the conferences. I can that seems like a world of difference of sexiness from, doing the grunt work of property management to seeing what it actually looks like from an owner standpoint and learning. That's a great point. And both are important, right? Because if you didn't understand the grunt work and you didn't understand all those things, then that's really the business at the end of the day, right? So that's a great point. You really got a full picture, which we should all be so lucky as business owners to actually get a look through a window of what the business is like to run. Because most of us start a company with no clue of what we're actually getting into. So it's actually a great point. I just want to comment on. Lucky you, Taylor. Kind of see the good, the bad, the hard work, the ethics that it takes, but also the success that other people were taking. And so you kind of got to see all that, which is really cool. So I've been around with you guys for a little while now. And I mean, Taylor, you had a job at Colorado Property Management, right? Realty and Property Management. I want to make sure I say it right. I know it's important. You had a job before you were running the company. So can you kind of walk us through, like, when did you go from like, I'm just helping my parents out to like, I'm actually like getting a paycheck, I'm doing stuff, this is where my focus is. What did that look like when you started?
Yes. So originally I would just answer phones during the summer and do paperwork when, the cloud didn't exist where we had all that stuff stored. And then in college, when I was in my sophomore year, I worked for off-campus student housing for an apartment complex. And so my experience there helped my parents to run their student property division. We managed about 53 doors right next to CU University of Colorado Boulder. And so I was in charge of the entire turn process of tenant move out, vendor scheduling, to then, move in, because you only have 5 days to do that in a college town. So I started there. And then my junior year is when I got really serious in working at the company. I started with more of a leasing role. So I did all of our advertising, our tenant screening, contractual things under Lyle's supervision, and then all kind of tenant communication and inquiries. And so that's really how that started. And then within that same year, I was like, I'm going to teach you how to do business development. So then I started taking new lead calls, and then it kind of morphed from there. And then we hired someone to replace me in leasing, and kind of onward from there.
Great. Yeah. So you really got to dip your toe in the water. Lyle, how was it? How did you not fire her? Was she a good employee? Did she have the work ethic? What was your experience like when she first started?
Well, Taylor knows how incredibly important the business is to our family. And she also knows how many family members I have fired before that just weren't doing their job or refused to do their job the way it needs to be done. But Taylor doesn't work from fear. Taylor works from confidence. And the one thing that I've appreciated, and I'm very fortunate that our relationship has this, is Taylor is a very, very confident leader and a very confident woman. And she will correct me at times when she feels I'm not making some of the right decisions or going the right direction, or she very nicely says, well, there is another way you could have said that. And she'll kind of help me restate a few things. But yeah, she came on board and she knew very, very, very quickly, because I set the example that everybody has a job to do. You do your job. We all have a lot of fun, but I absolutely expect you to do what you're being paid for. And so we really didn't have issues like that. She was very complimentary and supportive of doing things well. I don't think we've ever had, wow, Taylor, I don't think we've really ever had a big beef about, your work ethic or work habits, because, I'm very fortunate, Jeremy. She's a package. She's got all that, and we can receive that. But in all seriousness, she's just seen how Paul and I act around the business. When we come to work, Paul and I may have a squabble or something we're discussing that's personal, but once we cross the threshold of the door, It's gone. It's pure business. It's all business relationships, because nobody wants to come to work where there's personal issues going on. Nobody wants to see it, be part of it.
Yeah.
And I learned that a long, long time ago. And so Taylor was raised that way. And that's the way she understands it also. We come to work, everybody, we have jobs to do, and we do it well. We have a lot of fun, but it's always been great. She's had a great work ethic. You know, you should tell Jeremy about what all your uncles and aunts were saying when you were going to come to work for us. I think you'll get a kick out of this, because she uses words in this, Jeremy, that make some real sense. You know, I forget the words, and I'm gonna let her say it. I don't want to prejudice this, but there are those kids that go to work for their parents for one reason or another, but she states it real well. Why don't you talk about that? Because I don't think she goes to work for us, Jamie. She goes to work with us. I want to make that real clear.
You keep calling him Jamie. Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy, I'm so sorry. You know, I just have to preface this. I have two friends named Jamie that are men, and I have Jamie woman friend. So I apologize, Jeremy.
You're not the first. I get Jimmy, I get Jamie. So like you just kind of roll with the punches, you know, and like it's okay. Taylor, I would love to hear. What did you tell your aunts and uncles?
Yes, I think a common misconception when you work for a family-owned company is that it's easy, or you're taking the easy way out, which is something I had to overcome. All of my dad's brothers, he has 4, called and were like, wow, you took the easy way out. Your life is so easy, blah, 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 all this stuff. And what people don't understand is there's actually so much more pressure being in a family-run company, because you have to make sure that you are acting in the best interest of your family, because it affects obviously my livelihood, my parents' livelihood, and you're also working hard all the time to earn the respect of your coworkers. I am definitely, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I definitely work the hardest out of everyone here. I work the most hours out of everyone here. I will go through the fire for any of the team if they have issues or are struggling or things like that, because I want to have their respect and I want to work really hard. And of course, your coworkers, you spend, more time with them than your own family, because you're so much time together.
Really
So
true.
that was a big one. But yeah, just kind of overcoming the people thinking it was easy, you know, especially with Lyle taking more of a step back. Lyle is a very type A, very direct, very blunt, sometimes difficult person. And now that he has taken a step back, you know, our staff, I'm like, you guys are so lucky, because if something goes wrong, man, I get ripped apart. And then I have to relay the information, which is fine. That's what my job is. That's what I'm here for. But it's just funny.
Oh, I get some very direct emails from Lyle every now and then, so I can see where you're coming from, without a doubt. Yeah. Always productive, never negative, but very direct. I love that about Lyle. So I feel that. Well, that's it. I love Lyle too that you said I fired some family members. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about asking this question, but you know, I've been blessed to work with Taylor, and I know how much she levels up. I mean, this is something we shouldn't shy away from. You weren't just going to pass this on to anybody. Like, you actually believed Taylor could do this, right? And if it wasn't, you would have probably backed off from that, because you owe that to your staff, to your to your livelihood. So that's a great point. I mean, any thoughts or advice on what you do if you're like, hey, you know, if we would have, do we set boundaries before we got into this? Did you have like your antennas up? Were you always positive it was going to be like a slam dunk the way it seems to be unfolding? Because I could see other people going on the same path and it not being the right person that they're handing the business off to.
That is so huge, Jeremy. I mean, it sounds like such a perfect package. You know, mom and dad start the business, daughter comes up, she gets into the role, she takes over the business, mom and dad fade off into the hillside. It's extremely difficult. And I've been grooming Taylor for 6 years, pretty intense. I'll take her into meetings where she's sitting in the room, and I might be in a web meeting or something like that, so she gets exposure. I've been exposing her to financials, and so she understands what are the key things that she needs to monitor and watch. She's been involved with me in the hiring and firing process. I think it's easy to hire people. It's a lot more difficult to let them go when you need to sometimes. And then she has been exposed to the fact that, and it's not a threat and it's nothing to be fearful of. The boundaries need to be set in the very beginning. Paula and I had boundaries when we started the company together. This was my role and this was her role. And if one of us couldn't do our role and take care of business, then we had to figure out how it was going to get done. And so we've always worked that way, you know, and we worked in, you know, it's like you work into the evenings, you work on Saturdays and Sundays, you got to get it done. And part of you know, this company is very much my livelihood and Taylor's, and supported and Paula's, and supported Taylor as she has grown up, and everything that goes along with that. And we need to depend on it for a long time, actually. So instead of selling the company someday and doing with that resource whatever I would, you know, this is all part of my long-term retirement as well. But no, it's setting boundaries. And to be specific, I did fire somebody on Paula's side of the family one time. I actually fired her twice, to be honest with you. And then I fired somebody on my side of the family once. And it's just a matter of this is the role. You have to understand it. Because your family doesn't mean you get any breaks. In fact, I'm glad Taylor pointed out the fact that she works harder than everybody else. She does. There is no question about that. There's no question about that. And she knows that at the end of the day with the company, I'm always the last one standing, and she knows that that's her role now, and that she has to make sure everything's done. But there is that part of that where she had to gain the respect of the people that work for her. And she has a lot of people that are older than her and will in the future that are older than her that they report to her. And she handles that very well. And she handles that with grace and with dignity and truly with knowledge and respect. She will be the last one on every single project, and she makes sure it gets done. And she's earned the respect.
Great share. Taylor, you can add anything you want to that, but I don't want to run out of time because it's definitely an important question. I got 10 more questions.
Oh, yeah.
Important question I really want to ask on that note is, how do you feel, Taylor, about managing the relationships with all the other people at the company? You know, making sure they don't feel like you're just here because your last name is Haas, just because you are related to the owners, right? So how do you kind of manage that? Has it ever been a problem? Do you have any tips on how to do that? Because I'm sure that can weigh on a lot of people.
Yeah, gosh, now off the top of my head, I can't think about a situation where it was a problem. I pretty much early on came in and like worked my butt off to earn that respect early, and not just for this respect, but like that was my work ethic. As of right now, we have 25 employees, and all but 3 I have hired. 3 started before or at the same time I started. Yes, Lyle, you know who those 3 are. But anyway, of that, all of the ones post then have all been things that I've been involved with the hiring process. When I did it with Lyle, and then when I eventually kind of graduated to hiring people on my own. So I really do know every single person, and kind of out of the gate earned that respect in that regard. It's definitely people that don't care, and they'll work here and work with you. People that have a problem with that, like they're not going to come on board. A lot of our staff, yeah, I guess I don't know where I was going that, but no problems that I can think of.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think I knew where you're going. It's just like, if it's the right people, they're not going to make it an issue, right? Like the people, the right people, like it's the culture you guys are building, which we talked a little bit about that before we jumped on the call. You know, used to give some birthdays off and things like that, and doing that. I've been around, like I've had the fortune of working with several of your team members. You guys do have a great culture. We love being around you. I'll share that, like at Renscale, we love when we work with you guys in the meetings. Taylor, I've watched you level up in a huge way. I know I personally challenged you in the early days, and I've heard from my coaches that they've challenged you. You guys, you know, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I think it's worth bringing up. You guys definitely have a winner's mentality, a culture of like, I want to get better. One of the things that I think is just crazy to think about, I got my fingerprints all over my company culture. Like I'm just, I am like overbearing. I am the culture. You guys can probably envision that. So it's got to be crazy. Like, how do you transition that culture from one leader to the next? Have you thought about that, Taylor? What has that been like? Is it just coming naturally to you? Am I the first person to ask you this question? Or are you already thinking about that? Because like you got to maintain that culture as leadership changes. And I think that could be one of the biggest challenges. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. I feel like the culture of the company changes all the time. Just because your like expectations grow and your team grows. Like every year when we have a team, we're like, this is the greatest team we've ever had year to date. And then like the next year comes and you're like, it's even better. So I think it's consistently changing and morphing. But I think it goes back to I very much know what the expectations are of Lyle and Paula because we have similar opinions and expectations. And so with the team, there is no question of embodying that or anything. It's just exactly what we do, I guess. I don't know, Lyle, if you want to add on to that, but
Is it just happening so organically that you guys aren't even thinking about it?
Oh no, we spend time on it. We spend a lot of time working on culture, and when we feel like the culture is a little ajar and something's not smooth, it's time to do a check and to investigate. And we have a process now where instead of doing exit interviews, we do, what are they called, Taylor? Stay interviews. And so we do regular stay interviews. And Jeremy, I can't tell you how beneficial those are, because we have somebody that conducts all these interviews with every one of our staff, and we're really trying to investigate, get a feel for how they feel about things, about their environment, their peers, their position, their future. And it's so much more productive to get this information while somebody is working in the company and not trying to leave or threatening to leave, and you're trying to hold on to them, because it's good information versus a lot of exit interviews that they're done. They're done.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot of benefit you really get from that. And so when we find something that we can jump on or improve, we take it very seriously. We change things up constantly. We all day long, all 25 of us, I'm not on there, but all 24 of the rest of the staff, they're on the video. Okay, it's live. And so they get exposure to everybody. It's like coming to work. And it isn't because we're checking on people. We want them to feel part of our team. And so just being there and breaking out into pods or breaking out in departments, and this is regularly scheduled all the time. So they get exposure to their teammates on one-on-one in groups. And this team philosophy that we promote with our pods, with our departments, and within the company as a whole. Then we do chair yoga on Wednesdays after our weekly meeting, and then we also do coffee chats where we break out and we have a theme, and it's not a business theme, it's just a theme, where we all talk and we go into little groups and everybody gets a little group. And so you get to know each other. And then we have all kinds of incentive programs with bonuses where if they do this, if they do that, or critical thinking, or if they improved an idea that improved the company, we compensate them. We have this thing called Bonusly where you shout out your friend or your partner, the person across the room, you give them 15 bonus points, and these can all be turned into cash or books or podcasts and all this kind of stuff. So we're always doing this. And I want to point out something really important, as our companies have evolved. I remember the first time the whole concept of bringing in-house marketing in-house. Well, we have a 3-person in-house marketing team in our company. Okay. That was something we brought in-house. Well, then more and more, talking in some of the masterminds you're aware of that I'm involved in, this whole concept of HR and part-time use of HR. Well, we brought in somebody to aid us with HR, who is the culture czar in our company. Her job is to find fun things to do to bring us all together where we don't work and we have fun, little competitions and stuff like that. So So her job is she has to do 4 of them. And we even pay outside speakers to come in and do games with us where we're all online, or we do soccer. So we focus a lot on culture, and it's important. It isn't like it happens. We want that.
Well, yeah, culture does just happen, and that's usually the bad culture.
Yeah.
Like culture is going to happen no matter what, either you're intentional about it or you're not, and so
There you go.
yeah, my little line that I always tell the team is, and I heard this from my EO, which blew me away: culture is what you reward and what you tolerate, and that's it. Like at the end of the day, that's really like what culture is. We can play all the games, we can do everything we want, but it's what you reward and what you tolerate. Like that is your company culture, and you got to be very intentional about that. So I really appreciate that. I can tell you, I mean, you guys have an amazing team. Like I said, we experience that. We meet as a team at Rentscale all the time. We share wins and customer headlines. Like we got a whole rhythm. And yeah, you guys come up all the time. We love what you guys are doing. So that's huge, right, Taylor? And that's just kind of thinking through like how that transitions and it stays that way. It's got to be paramount for sure. So, all right, I want to ask a couple of very specific questions that I can't not have in this article, which is really important. Number one is, when was the conversation? Like, when did you say, hey, you might take over this company one day? Like at some point, it had to be like something, right? Like, was it a direct conversation or did it happen organically?
Oh gosh, I'm not sure if I remember exactly. Lyle might more vividly. I want to say the decision was made probably my like 2nd year. And it was more or less along the conversation of like, instead of it being like, hey, what's your plans for the company? I was like, one day you won't be here and I'll run the show. It's very direct and straightforward.
Yeah. Your words were, I want to push you out of the company.
Yeah.
Those are her words. I want to push you out of the company.
Got it. So it was very much a hostile takeover, not a invitation to run the company one day.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. See, this is all signs to share with other people. If they're pulling, I've got so many friends that are 2nd generation business owners, and some of them are pulled, some of them just decided. And so I love these shares. This is so important. So Lyle, you and Paula, 17 years, you're giving Taylor more and more responsibility. How has your life changed? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you part-time, you full-time? You shared with me a little before, you got a trip coming up. How has your, like, are you getting benefits from this? Or are you still working as hard as you ever did?
Oh, you know what? My role has changed. There's definite business benefits from this. The benefits are that Taylor very, very much is excited about her role in leadership and future leadership of the company, and where she wants to take the company. And I see that and I feel that, and that transcends into the people that she oversees and she manages. So there are a lot of benefits, and she is promoting and helping the company to grow the way it is. And so it's great having a full-fledged, full-on third partner in the business instead of just Paul and I. It's Taylor, Paul, and I. And we actually have a meeting. It's called the directors meeting, and it starts at 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning. It's an hour-and-a-half meeting where we discuss higher level issues and broader picture issues than the specifics with departments. So we meet on a weekly basis just as directors. And so how's my role changed? If I had to give a great comment to all those other families considering something like this, is one of my biggest challenges was to learn how to step back and not have as much control and allow things to take place with others, and feel confident about doing that. So my stepping back process, I've taken another step every single day, and another step. Whereas my role now is the visionary. I look at forward motion for the company. I look at projects, alternatives. I get involved in some of the high level issues that come up that may be legal and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm promoting the company from a broader scale, and I'm able to look down I'm going to use the word look down. I can look down at all the departments and I can see things that maybe other people are caught up in and bring it to their attention and pull it together. And so part of that role is, and yes, I work at least 40 hours a week still. So, and I'm looking very forward to stepping back someday, but I'm still a very young man at 65 and very involved, but Taylor is going to push me out, I guarantee you. And so that's what I do, but I'm involved with all the department. I meet primarily with the managers. We have weekly manager meetings and go from there.
Yeah, I would say Lyle works on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
Lyle does not do any property management unless I reach out to him because we have an issue. Otherwise, he's doing more of the entrepreneurial kind of fun, bigger picture stuff, like he said.
Yeah, like Jeremy, you could get a hold of me, but nobody else could call our company and get a hold of me.
Yeah.
I feel, yeah, we are, Lyle, we're in a similar boat. It's amazing right now. I the team to do everything, and I work just as hard as ever. I'm just working on different things, and I get to, yeah, it's very important. So that's amazing. So you're still very involved in the visionary role, and you're still, so that was one of the things I was gonna ask about too, is like, how do you guys handle vision? Do you guys collide on that at all? You know, do you just kind of hand it down in a stone tablet, Lyle, or is everybody involved and you guys all communicate on that? So because that's where I can see like that transition from one generation to the other being actually like a really hot spot if you're a natural visionary entrepreneur, like I think you and I are, Lyle.
Yeah, and that's true. I love that role, and that's what I'm really good at, is the visionary role. And it was all the little bits and pieces that finally I discovered that it was so much nicer having other people that did enjoy or were capable of doing that. But as, for example, when I have an idea, and I have many of them, I think I have 234 domains. Because every time I get an idea, I go out and punch out 2 or 3 domains real quick. So I have the domain.
Yeah.
But so when I have an idea, that's part of our directors meeting, and I'll discuss that with Taylor. For example, in the last 18 months, I've looked at buying 2 companies to the tune of about 1,200 units, and on both of them, I decided, about 3 months into them that it wasn't a good deal. And it wasn't a good fit, rather. So those are things like, Taylor, here's what we're thinking about. This is how many units. This is when they'll come on. Do you have everything you need? If we do this, here's the pros, here's the cons. What do you think? What's your input? And so I'll bring that. Steamboat. I've got a new concept we're going to introduce. It's Steamboat. Well, they're in the front range. Steamboat is 3.5 hours away. How are we going to do this? So this is all stuff I have to discuss. So I may have the ideas and the vision, but I need to bring it to Taylor because Taylor's going to implement. And she has all the worker bees below her that are going to be part of the implementation. So she has to buy off on it. And if I can't convince her it's a good idea, or she can't convince me otherwise, we'll probably go forward, or at least I'll continue experimenting to see if it is. As you know, there's a lot of ideas, Jeremy, that go to the wayside. For every one idea, 25 I looked at. So.
Yeah. Wow, story of my life, Lyle. Story of my life, for sure. We need our Taylors to keep us grounded, to execute. Which I have on my team as well, which is great. So Taylor, I want to ask you, over this process, what's been the biggest surprise to you? So if you're your, I guess, 17 or 18-year-old self, when you even started thinking about getting involved, like, what are you blown away by? What have you learned as being in the trenches that you never saw coming?
Oh, that's a great question.
If anything, I mean, it sounds like you got really exposed, so I don't want you to have to make up something, but is there something you're just like, yeah, I really didn't, no one could have ever told me this until I experienced it myself?
I'd say from an industry whole, it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I mean, with changing legislation, like, we have meetings all of the time about how we're going to overcome cuts to our income, where we're going to make that money up. So like, instead of just being able to run a business, you're like being regulated and told how you can run the business, which makes it challenging. I think how mean and terrible people are. Like when I first started, it would be like, oh, there's a bad apple here and there. Then all day you just get shit on all the time by terrible people, basically. So that was a challenge. But I think the biggest thing is it's not easy. Like if we're looking at it specifically from the family point of view, like when we first started together, it was super fun, it was exciting, and it still is super fun, but like I didn't have as much of a dominant role or opinion as I do now. Whereas now, Lyle and I challenge each other a lot, and we are similar in the point that we both will believe we're right until the end of it. So there's like challenging that way. So it's not easy. And so we consistently working with each other and, kind of growing in that regard. We have a safe word for if things get into out of office time, pineapple, immediately. We don't talk about work anymore after that. So we try to create really good boundaries. But yeah, I would say challenges that I didn't expect was how much it's regulated, how much, other people can dominate what you can do with your business. I think the people, which anyone at any point or position in a property management company can say, just because we deal with such difficult issues. And then obviously with family challenges is, making sure, like Lyle said, that you create that threshold of when conversations are allowed where, and then of course, making sure that you're like challenging each other positively so that way, no side of that coin of personal or work relationship gets affected.
Mhm.
You actually you tipped off what my very last question was going to be. What are family holidays like when you work together? But so you kind of started to give me a tip of that, but like, tell me, what is a Thanksgiving like in the Haas household?
Yeah, we actually do pretty good where we don't talk about a lot of work. If we do talk about work, it has to do with a lot of like ideas. Like Lyle, he's an entrepreneur, so I'm sure you can appreciate. He's always having ideas. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I was thinking this. So it's a lot of stuff like that. Other conversations that will come up if somebody somehow figures out what Lyle's email address is and sends him an email. He's like, now what now? What's going on? I'm like, you don't even have to worry about it. It's already being dealt with. So exciting parts and then issues usually. But no, we're lucky. Holidays are not dominated by work by any means.
I can share that in my company, having a COO now, it's the same way. It's not family holidays, but it's like if something rolls up the hill to me, I want to get involved. And then they're like, nope, got people for this. So it's so funny. It's that Taylor, it's not even if it's family. It's just even like, it's just, we're not used to dealing with everything. We're firefighters and, control freaks as entrepreneurs. So it's really funny. That's what you guys are dealing with at your family reunions or your family holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do a good job of it. I think it boils down to really understanding how important our time together is, and family, special time, and holidays. That I honestly believe there's 100 different businesses that I could be involved in, that I could start, that we could be involved in as a family. We choose to be in property management, but that doesn't mean that needs to dominate the special times in our life. And we love to ski together. We love holidays. We camp together, and there just has to be that time to break away from it. And that's a luxury. I think it's taken time for me to understand. I'll be honest with you, because I'm so in things that I had to learn to break away, Jeremy. I'll be honest with you. I had to learn to turn it off, because it'll be there. It's always going to be there. You know that. So I can come back to it. But yeah, I'm just not willing to mortgage my personal time with my family.
Yeah. And I think
Sure.
between the two of us, and you could disagree, Lyle, I think Lyle struggles with it more than I do, only because yes, he has all of these ideas, but since he's not working in the business, he also has a lot of questions about how things are going. And like when we get a bad review or something rolls uphill, then I don't want to put emotions into your mouth, but you get like concerned or fear or, frustrated. That I think Lyle tries to bring it up more than I do in that personal time, where I gotta set him straight and be like, no, this is not the time. Or I know, like, ooh, I'm definitely not going to talk about that. I'm going to wait till 8 a.m. on Monday to bring that one up, just because I don't want it to dominate the meeting or the weekend or anything like that.
And that's where you said you use the safe word. Like, I love that. You're just like, hey, you have a mutual understanding that, like, let's just enjoy our weekend together. Let's enjoy the dinner together. And that'll all be there for us later. And it seems like that's serving you guys really well.
We have another thing, I'll just chime in there. Well, we have another very important member of the family who's going to be Taylor's husband soon. So with her fiance as one of our leaders on the leadership team,
Right.
that adds one more element family is so important. We just can't mess it up. So
thank you for bringing that up. Director of maintenance or maintenance manager. I'm not sure what the title is, but yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's a great aspect that it's truly like so many businesses are like, think about like big corporations, like nobody can be related. Nobody can, have any relationships, but like family business has been around for 100 years more. I mean, actually it was the only business, until 100 years ago. Right. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, Taylor, you spend more time at work with these people. And if you can have healthy relationships, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm a big believer, like, these are some of the most important relationships in your life. I'm very good friends with people I work with. And I think that does not cross any lines or hurt anything. It actually like helps the business. Like it's kind of a superpower from a culture standpoint, if you ask me, versus everybody just having this sterile, I can't wait to get home and not talk to the people I work with all day. So I love that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
All right. So last thing, because I have no more questions. This is great. I know we're right at time. Anything I didn't ask? Anything you guys want to say that I didn't put out there that you'd want to make sure you shared with your comrades in the same position?
Gosh, I don't know. I would just reiterate that if you want your kids to be involved, it has to be self-discovery. You can't like make them get involved or, self-discovery. And then I think I think just reminding that it's not easy. Lyle and I have a lot of fun and it looks super fun, but it's not always super fun. So don't want to sugarcoat it, but also be realistic. It takes work because you're working on two relationships in one. But no, I would say that's it. It is a lot of fun. I'm excited for the future and I will always be appreciative of the opportunity that my parents gave me and that they were on board for me to kick them out of the company, like Lyle said. So it's pretty fun.
Really is a hostile takeover. The more I hear about it.
Yes.
In fact, we're really looking forward to this 2-month camping trip because although I've got Starlink, I'll have Wi-Fi and I've got total access. We're hoping really to Taylor and we're real confident that Taylor and the management team that we have put together will be able to jump on it and take over while we're gone. We'll be very involved. My goal is to be involved for a very long time, but not in the day-to-day whatsoever. And so we're really excited. And I think if I had to say anything to other families concerning it is that there's a way to, if you're thinking about a family member in a higher level role, expose them to higher level thought processes. They still have to start where they need to start to learn the business and to progress. But if you want them to be in a role, start training them to be that role. And, I treat Taylor like she's going to be the president of this company someday and to use outside sources because I can't teach her everything by any means. So I love to bring other influences in, other coaches, other teaching, other exposure and conferences. And so allow them to grow and expand way beyond it. Like I tell every single one of my employees, and I say this sincerely, is I want you to suck my brains right out of my head. I will give you everything in my head, but you know what? It's not enough. For you to go on in the world, you have to find more brains to suck. And you pull all this knowledge in way beyond me. And so that's my philosophy with bringing people up in the company. Give them everything, but let them expose them to as much as you can.
It's clearly serving you well. It's amazing. Taylor, anything else you'd add?
Oh gosh, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if you have any ideas, you can always email me.
Good.
This will be, you'll see the article and be like, oh, I really wish you would have added this, let me know. But I mean, this has been fantastic. I want to say something to each of you guys. So Lyle, what's amazing, like watching Taylor grow through this whole thing, like being there, personally coaching Taylor in the early days. Nothing was too big for her. Like she was super hungry for everything, which was amazing. And I know I've heard from some of my other coaches, we've also challenged you along the way, Taylor, and sometimes you're not always ready to hear it, but then you always have a good attitude and you always come back. And I've heard over and over again, we talk about this all the time in Scale Club. It's like, if you're just showing up and taking, you're missing the point, right? You always say like, you always need to kind of have 3 really good relationships in your life, like somebody who's ahead of you, somebody that's below you you're helping, and then a peer or 2 that are just next to you, right? And you're kind of doing that. And so my team has repeatedly shared how great you are as a presence in the community. And I know you're kind of moving on to the next phase, and Renee's taking on that and doing great, and Tooney. But I'm just saying, I want to say, like, you've always really like given to the community, and I really appreciate that because it's been amazing. We've learned so much from you, and I hope we've given you that back in spades. But you always show up and you're always teaching, and it's just awesome. And I think that's like just such a important aspect of winners. You're not just trying to take, right? You're also trying to give and peer. And I know you meet with Mark and Jason and some of my other favorite clients, and you guys are doing that. So that will continue to serve you well. I promise you. That's what served me the best. And Taylor, I want to tell you about Lyle. When we met in Vegas the very first time, like I think you guys were like client number 10 or something like that. We had a great dinner with Paula and Lyle, and I got an email from Lyle the next day. He says, Jeremy, I still don't understand what you do, but I just want to hire you. I just like you so much. Like, he literally said that. And I'm like, we need to get on a call because I need you to understand what we're doing, because it's going to involve a lot of work on your part. And that's always stuck with me, Lyle. It's always stuck with me because I too have made those decisions where I'm just like, okay, if my peers are valuing this person and I enjoy being around them, I don't need to like discern with like a microscope whether this is going to be valuable or not. It probably is, right? And it's just that whole energy thing. And I just love, and I'll never, I've told that story so many times. I never forgot that. I make a lot more decisions based just on that. It's just like, okay, everyone else that I respect is hiring this person, and I like this person. And that always stuck with me. And I love that you did that. And I love that you've always given us the benefit of the doubt when things weren't perfect. And you've always been very candid with feedback, but never in a judgmental way. Like, I want my money back, or like something's wrong. You're just like, hey, as a customer, this is what I'm experiencing and this is what I want. And I just want to thank you for that. And I want to pass it on to you, Taylor. It's just been amazing to have a client like that. And so, kudos to you guys, because I'm learning so much from you guys as we go through this whole process.
We are from each other. You
Yes,
betcha.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. I know we got a little over time here.